Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. We're going to take a look back at the awful week 2 on Draftkings. The NFL was not kind to us in week 2. Lots of injuries. Ben Roethlisberger sustained an elbow injury that is going to keep him out for the entire year. Drew Brees has a thumb injury that is expected to keep him out at least 6 weeks. And the ramifications of those injuries and the fallout from them kind of caused things to go a little bit sideways for us in week 2. There were some things that went right. There were some things that went wrong. Every single Monday morning on twitch.tv/Al_smizzle, I look at what happened the previous week and I look at my analysis from the previous week. The first thing we do is we're going to go through my Best Buys column, which is an ESPN Plus piece. If you subscribe to ESPN Plus, definitely go look for that. Easiest way to find it, just Google Best Buys week, whatever it is. That goes up every Thursday morning. So we're going to look back at the players that I wrote up in that article, many of whom are the core of my tournament building lineups that I'm going to usually try to be overweight on most of these guys versus the field. We're going to see where I was right, where I was wrong, and where, if I was right, was I lucky? If I was wrong, was I unlucky? And where I was wrong, was it bad process? So we can not make those mistakes moving forward. Because that's really the key, is to learn every single week of NFL, every single slate of NFL, so that we can try and improve our process to give us better results down the line. So I've had a pretty good career doing this. I've done these recap videos for the last 3 seasons. Before that, it's something that I do every single Monday. I look back before I look forward. So look out for the first look video. That's coming later on today. But as for right now, thank you for being here once again. Drop a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, ring that notifications bell. You guys know the drill. Make sure that you do all those things before you leave. And I appreciate all the support that we have seen this month for the charity drive that we're doing for No Kid Hungry. We're trying to raise $10,000. This morning, right before we started recording this video on stream, we got over the $6,000 mark. Our end of this fundraiser is September the 30th. So if you guys on YouTube want to try and get involved in this and donate a little bit of money to try and help stop, childhood hunger for as many kids as we can do this for, there's a link right down below in the description. But let's take a look at Best Buys starting right now. Here's the article, ESPN Plus. There's Mike Clay. We're going to look at everything that we did in week 1, starting with, let me make this a little bit bigger. This looks smaller today for whatever reason. Let's make this larger so you can see it on the video here. Perfect. Lamar Jackson. He's pretty good so far. He's also faced possibly the 2 best matchups that any quarterback could have faced through 2 weeks in the Miami Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals. So 2 big pace-up spots that aren't really talented on defense. You can pick them apart, do whatever you want. He smashed once again, regardless of price and regardless of ownership. He's got another good matchup in week 3, 33.88 DraftKings points, 24 of 37, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, he achieved the bonus on the ground with 16 rushing attempts for 120 yards and no touchdowns. So that rushing floor came back into play for him in week 2. I'm not projecting 16 carries a week from him. I believe he's going to average on the season between 10 and 12, which is more than enough for any quarterback. We'll get to another one of those a little bit later. Jared Goff, top 20 fantasy points, 19 of 28 for 1 touchdown, 283 yards, 20.1 DraftKings points, and ran for another one as well on a sneak because Cooper Kupp got called that he was down on the half-yard line on what would have been a fantastic long touchdown pass. He turned into a rushing touchdown for himself, so got you a couple extra points there if you played Jared Goff for 5.9K. Totally fine. Josh Allen, 5.3K, ended the day with 22.22 fantasy points, although this game ended up being a lot lower output for him than it could have been, as he went to halftime with 19 DraftKings points, 19 of 30 on the day, over 60% completion rate, which is a big improvement from last season, 253 yards passing and a touchdown, 7 for 21 on the ground with a rushing touchdown as well. Looking at some other players that I was interested in, Deshaun Watson ended the day with 12.22 points, very disappointing. Did have a rushing touchdown to kind of bring it back a little bit, but 12 points is not enough from your quarterback, so I'll take the L there. Tom Brady, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, 24.66 DraftKings points, fine. Derek Carr really disappointed even after that early touchdown and scoring on their first 2 drives. 198 yards only, 2 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 11.7 points. This was a miss, albeit the cheaper you go at quarterback, the more risk you are taking, unless there's somebody, who has a rushing floor like a Josh Allen. So know the risks when you're getting involved. The risk with Alvin Kamara seemed like it should have been low. 15 touches should have been his floor. He didn't even get there, as he touched the ball 14 times, 13 rushes, 45 yards, 1 catch on 3 targets. 1 catch on 3 targets? Are you kidding me, Sean Payton? 3 targets? I think we got unlucky here, and I'm going to explain to you why. Drew Brees getting hurt is something that none of us can predict. However, Drew Brees getting hurt does not stop the ball from getting dumped down to Alvin Kamara. So a quarterback getting hurt is going to possibly, going with a backup, somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, who's a pro. He's been in the league for enough years. He's been in this system for a little bit to know what he's doing. Your running back, when you end up getting behind in the second half, who should never see less than 6 targets in any sort of game plan, ends the day with 3 with a backup quarterback in many different ways where you can just ping the ball to your running back. It's not like Michael Thomas ended the day with too few targets. He had enough. Jared Cook ended the day with enough. They just weren't doing what they needed to do to get Alvin Kamara the ball. And 2 of those targets came from Drew Brees. So they just had no effort to get him the ball. The 13 carries, that's in his range. That's in his wheelhouse. 13 to 16 carries a week is all I'm looking for from Alvin Kamara. But in a game like this against the Rams, where you're going to have to score 20-something points, you've got to get him a floor of 6 targets with a very realistic 9 to 11 targets, which is why we rostered him and why everybody else in daily fantasy and cash games rostered him as well, because he came at a $1,000 discount from somebody like Ezekiel Elliott, who ended up as one of the best or the best high dollar running backs on the week with Saquon Barkley. Him ending this day with 7 DraftKings points, I think we definitely got unlucky here. If we ran this week 100 times, there's no way he ends up another time with 7 DraftKings points, even with the injury to Drew Brees. Mark Ingram, I'm changing my process moving forward on Mark Ingram. It just doesn't look like he's going to get 20 touches a week. He did see 2 more catches this week than he saw last week on 2 targets, but 13 carries on 47, for 47 yards, 9.7 DraftKings points, not running a lot of routes, not really getting involved the way that they're running offense, and they're going to split carries. And it does not appear to be just the way the blowout ran. And if your number 1 running back's getting less carries than your quarterback, and you're mixing in guys like Justice Hill, and you're mixing in guys like Gus Edwards, I just don't think that there is a ceiling possibility for Mark Ingram, save him scoring 2 touchdowns on 15 touches. And those are very tough to predict. And at 6K, I'm going to say that this was a process mistake on my part. Josh Jacobs, he did what we thought he was going to do. He got, but also not, right? No inclusion in the pass game whatsoever. And on DraftKings and full PPR, we have to take running backs that are going to have some involvement in the passing game. He did get 12 carries for 99 yards, just barely missing out on that bonus. Ended the day with 9.9. He wasn't the guy that hurt you. You could have ended up very, very high up in the tournament rankings and definitely won the majority of your cash games with somebody like Josh Jacobs in your lineup because of what else he allowed you to go get, because he freed up so much. Obviously, we want to get 15 to 20 points out of a running back at this price to try and get us to a place where we can win tournaments. 9.9 doesn't kill you. If you had like 2 or 3, that would have killed you. Matt Breida, somebody else I wrote up this week, 12 carries, 1 catch on 1 target. They brought up Taylor from the practice squad. The other 2 running backs ended up with all the touchdowns this week. Still ended the day with 17.2 DraftKings points because of the 121 yards on the ground. You'd think if your running back's averaging 10 yards a carry, you'd give him the ball more, but Matt Breida is somebody who probably can't carry that sort of a workload as he's been dinged up a ton in the past. Moving on to wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. I knew that I was flying into the wind with the matchup against Ramsey. He has lit up Ramsey before. Ramsey respects very few wide receivers, at least not openly. And as openly as he respected DeAndre Hopkins, I would have expected this game to score many more points than it did. He did get the 8 targets, which was about the floor that I assumed for him. 5 catches for 40 yards, 9 points, just not enough. This is what sunk me, especially considering all of the value wide receivers below him that outscored him in that 7,500 to 8K range, or 8,100 that we paid for DeAndre Hopkins. Guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Keenan Allen, or Amari Cooper were in that range, and we spoke about them on the Anti-Tinkercast. Cooper Kupp did Cooper Kupp things once again. 5 catches, 9 targets, 120 yards, and one spectacular almost touchdown catch in the second half. 20.6 DraftKings points. Terrell Williams, the Gazelle, caught an early touchdown. 7 targets, 5 catches, 46 yards, and a touchdown. 15.6 DraftKings points. He was fine. Juju Smith-Schuster lost his quarterback, though he was not targeted by him. Definitely got targeted afterwards with 5 catches on 8 targets for 84 yards, no touchdowns. 13.4 DraftKings points isn't what you want when you draft a 7.5K wide receiver, but again, those scores don't kill you in cash games. The days that those guys have like single digit points really end up hurting you a lot more. Terry McLaurin did just fine at 3,800, 9 targets once again for this kid, 5 catches, ended up with a touchdown, 62 yards, 17.2 DraftKings points. I'm okay with that. Now, Evan Ingram, this is an issue, and this was an issue to me of game planning, scheme, the way you're attacking. Another spot where I knew I was flying into the wind, going up against a tough matchup with the Buffalo Bills. We went for a couple of easier matchups at other spots, but Evan Ingram, you know, is going to get targets, especially when Sterling Shepard is out on top of Golden Tate being out. You would think that Evan Ingram would get his 8 to 15 targets. He got his 8 targets. He had 5 of them in the first half. 4 of them turned into catches. He had 5 receiving yards. He had negative air yards in the first half. If you don't know what air yards are, that's the amount of distance in yards that a ball travels on a target. So if you catch a ball 30 yards downfield, that is 30 air yards. If you catch the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, that is -2 air yards. They did absolutely nothing to get the ball through the air to Saquon Barkley or Evan Ingram this game, at least in any sort of creative way. And he did not achieve positive air yards until that 40-yard catch in the second half. He kind of salvaged it a little bit late with that 40-yard catch. 6 catches, 8 yards, 6 catches on 8 targets for 48 yards and 10.8 DraftKings points. But I'm struggling to understand if this was a process mistake, if this was a game planning mistake, therefore leaving us unlucky, or if this is just a bad matchup and I should have avoided it altogether. And it's probably some combination of all three. If you want to leave me a message down in the replies down below to this video, go ahead, of what you think about any of the tight ends, or if you view matchups as I don't play guys in tough matchups, because I certainly do from time to time, especially in tournaments when they're going to be under-owned. Maybe I flew into the winds a little bit too much with Ingram and with DeAndre Hopkins this week. We'll find out. Darren Waller, 3.3K on DraftKings, ends the day with 12.3 DraftKings points, 6 catches, 7 targets, 63 yards. Essentially had a very similar day to Evan Ingram, though he had it at 2K cheaper, allowing you to spend up somewhere else. Mark Andrews had another smash day. 8 catches, 9 targets, 112 yards, and a touchdown. 2 straight weeks, he has had 8 catches and 100+ yards, triggering the bonus, and 1 touchdown. Ends the day with 28.2 DraftKings points. TJ Hawkinson didn't do as well against the Chargers. 3 targets only, coming off of a massive week in week 1 where he played against the Miami Dolphins, who seem to be kind of a flowchart team, them and the Cardinals, for tight ends. 1 catch, 3 targets for 7 yards, no touchdown, 1.7 DraftKings points. I'll take the L on TJ Hawkinson in week 2. Ravens had 4 points. Texans had 10 points. Bengals had -2 points. So I obviously missed on them defensively, going up against San Francisco, who looked much improved in week 2. Let's go take a look at my cash game lineup that I ended up with on that week. Here's the 4-man from the Daily Fantasy Edge podcast. I went with Josh Allen, who did fine. Austin Eckler, who did great. Josh Jacobs didn't kill this lineup. There were a lot of other guys who might have. I went with John Brown to correlate with Josh Allen, and I went with DeAndre Hopkins because I felt that he would still get his 10 to 13 targets. He didn't. This really hurt. Obviously, Alvin Kamara hurts as well. The Texans defense was fine. Evan Ingram and Terrell Williams to square it off. I did not win in cash games this week. This was a very tough week. 20% of the field in head-to-head, or in double-ups, 50-50s, and head-to-heads ended up with the New England Patriots defense. So if you had them, you essentially won on the week, because ownerships were somewhat consolidated around the 3 Raiders, who I did not want to have 3 of in my cash game lineup or in my tournament lineup. So I was trying to limit to 2, which is why I ended up on Evan Ingram. If I end up on Mark Andrews, obviously things turn out differently, but I was higher on Ingram coming into the week, and maybe I shouldn't have been. So that immediately took down my winning possibility for not having the Patriots on offense. And then the DeAndre Hopkins thing really hurt me. In tournaments, I was overweight on the Patriots defense. Didn't win money on DraftKings in tournaments. Did win money on 2 other sites. So that kind of evened things out a little bit for me in tournaments. Brought it back to those middling weeks, right? Like I kind of consider a plus 10% or a losing 10% week just kind of as breaking even. You're just kind of staying afloat. It's the negative 100% weeks, the negative 70% weeks that you need to avoid and hope that you can bink. So you want to survive as long as you can to be able to have that opportunity to bink in tournaments. So my best tournament lineup ended up here 914th in the Millionaire Maker. Cody Latimer was the one that ended up holding this back. There was a process mistake in my groups on Daily Roto that we talked about on stream, and we will get into in future podcasts as well. So if you'd like to be a part of the conversation outside of these YouTube videos, please come drop by the stream. And I spend a little bit more time going in depth with thoughts on my process, mistakes that I make, and things that we can all do to get better moving forward. Thank you guys for joining once again. If you wouldn't mind dropping a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring that notifications bell, because I come out with a ton of content during the week, every week of NFL, and I wouldn't want you to miss the release of any one of them. Other than that, got a bunch of videos coming out. We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Good luck in week 3.